How's it going, guys? My name is Zach with the Movie Castle, and today we're going to be talking about Mother's Day from 1980 and directed by Charles Kaufman. Those of you guys who noticed that last name, Kaufman, this is Lloyd Kaufman's brother. Lloyd Kaufman, head of Troma. Troma, an independent film company, made lots of really cool movies, including this one. And, put out some pretty cool stuff, As a fan of horror and independent film, they've made some things that I really enjoy. That being said, for whatever reason, this is actually the first time I'm doing a review of one of their movies on this channel, and I really need to change that and do a few more, because there's some pretty classic films in their lineup. And if you're watching this video on the day it came out, today is Mother's Day, so thematically appropriate. Although, if this movie actually does take place on Mother's Day, it's never really specified in the film. It's just a cool title given what happens. But yeah, 1980, a really early slasher. I mean, obviously, 1980, the first year of the 80s slasher boom. Obviously, the 80s slasher boom started in 1978 with Halloween, but I mean, this is pretty early on in the cycle, and a lot of the stuff you see here, this was, among the first times that these, were being used, and it really was ahead of its time in a lot of ways, but still it's a B movie and kind of came out underrated. Let's go ahead and talk a bit about the plot. I'm not going to be doing any major spoilers, but I do want to say my piece on a few plot points and make sure you guys have a basic understanding as to what this movie's about. So let's go ahead and just dive right into the plot. We open up at a motivational speech, and after it's over, an old woman decides to give two younger people a ride back to their house. Now, the whole time you think the younger people are going to do something to this old woman, but there's a clever twist of events. She pretends to have car problems, and two men jump out of the woods and actually kill the younger people. So the victim was the opposite of what you might think it was going to be, and we find that the two younger people are this old lady's sons, So she's the head of the family, and she has these two kids to do her bidding for her. Young, strong, really energetic characters, and these are some of the driving points of the movies, the characters, but we'll get into that more in a bit. After that, we're introduced to our main protagonist characters. There are these three girls who met in college, and you get a fun slideshow opening showcasing, them being real and talking to each other, and again, a strong sense of character. These three girls, after college, wanted to keep their group, the Rat Pack as they call themselves, together, so they decided to go on a vacation every year, and they alternate who picks where they go. And of course, this year, one of them picks going camping, and they're going to the woods right by where Ma and her boys live. I couldn't help but notice there's actually a novel by Richard Lehman called Blood Games, which has a similar premise of a bunch of girls after college who do a trip every year, and then they pick a haunted location by mistake. And if you're fans of this movie, I would definitely recommend checking out Richard Lehman's Blood Games, and of course, vice versa. If you like Blood Games, check this out. An interesting setup piece here, and you do get a real sense of camaraderie amongst these girls. They, of course, go camping, and their paths will cross with the killer characters. And I don't want to get too much further because I don't want to spoil this, but I will say that it happens relatively early on in the movie. The first third is characters, and then after that, the last hour is the crazy horror stuff. And usually in horror movies, the setup is a lot longer than that. In some cases, slasher movies, you really only get the final act as horror stuff, but jump into the action pretty quick while doing a fair amount of character setup at the beginning. But let's go ahead and talk about this movie's major pros. And I've hinted at it several times, but character is king in this movie. And, you know, you get the girls, which could all be the stereotypes, you know, the beautiful Beverly Hills girl, the nerdy girl, and your kind of, you know, main character feeling girl. But they all tend to be a little more fleshed out, and the way they interact feels very, very realistic, and I really do like that. You can get behind them really easily, and when they get into the horror situations, you don't want anything bad happening to them, and you really get behind them as they're pushed down a dark path. Now, on top of that, you get the family, the typical redneck family in the woods, but again, done pretty well, where you see the relationships with these characters. You get the mom, from the title, and she's keeping her boys around with her, and she's really, you know, has the leash there, and will, you know, manipulate them. She has this story about how this person named Queenie is in the woods, and, you know, you have to stick by your mother because Queenie could get her, and you kind of wonder who this figure is. Is she real, or is she just something to keep the boys in check? And you get to see the head of the family manipulating the other two, the boys, who you get on the cover. You know, they have this, one of them has a mask and the other has this, you know, cool hat, and they do kind of the thing where at first you see them, they're wearing these masks much more often, but they start to take them off in the film, and as they do this, it really aligns with you starting to understand them better. And, you know, they're not just your typical thugs, and don't get me wrong, they are very bad and they do some pretty horrific things in the movie, but you do get to see, especially at times when they clash with mom, that, you know, there is some conflict within these characters where, you know, especially like there's one scene later on where one of the brothers questions if Queenie is even real, and you see, you know, this kind of look of doubt on his face. You know, there is more going on to these characters, despite, you know, the redneck, you know, killer family stereotype. There is a fair bit there, and you really do get to understand the boys, even though, yes, they are evil. Now, that is one thing I do want to mention is there is some pretty crazy stuff in this, some pretty dark moments. Now, you only have 3 main characters, so this isn't, I mean, it's a slasher movie, but it's not one with a high body count. I mean, with only 3 characters that you could potentially kill, you can't just, you know, blow through all the kills really quick, and I think if this had been a later slasher movie, they would have wrote in a few pointless characters just to get killed off. But if you don't do too many kills, how do you spend most of your movie? And that is with scenes of strange torture and scenes of chase and escape. You know, strange torture you get where they pull one of the girls aside and mom's making the girl and her 2 boys act out these weird scenes like some sort of strange play, and you're like, okay, what's going on here? And you also get the chase and escape sequences, which have some pretty cool moments and gags, especially running through this farmhouse. In Texas Chainsaw, you get the isolated farmhouse that's all these bones and stuff, but here it's a bunch of trash, you know, stuff they've accumulated over the years, you know, like a really old Big Bird alarm clock, and there's just like a mattress in the corner of the room at one point, spray paint all over the walls. You see this is really run down and neglected, you know, elements of, say, a hoarder's house. But a pretty interesting set for them to run around and fight each other in. And let's run around and fight each other. But without spoiling anything, I do want to say it does build up to a really satisfying finale. You know, the whole time I was watching, you know, good character setup for the first act, and, you know, some pretty weird and crazy stuff in the middle. But then when you finally get to that last act, especially the last few scenes, it really does pan out to something pretty cool. But anyway, let's go ahead and mention one thing, and it's something that has to be said, is you can't help but draw comparisons between this movie and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. You know, group of people gets kidnapped by a family in an isolated house in the middle of nowhere, and, you know, chase and escape and torture sequences and stuff. And obviously, I mean, it should go without saying, Texas Chainsaw Massacre is clearly the better film. It's, you know, the documentary style filmmaking, the themes of, you know, a world that has moved on and left this family behind. It's clearly better, and you get to see that this is more the B-movie version of that. But I feel like saying that this is a B-movie slasher both perfectly describes it, but also undersells it, because, yeah, it's a B-movie, it's, you know, not as well made, and it is cheesy in several respects, but at the end of the day, who really cares about that? A fun B-movie slasher, you sit there and you watch the craziness happen. It really is, you know, quite a fun movie, but at the same time, you know, I've seen so many B-movie slashers, and there are quite a bit of them that are forgettable, but this is a lot better than a lot of them. You know, definitely something you're going to remember for a while, and that's because of the great chases and the characters, and, you know, it really is, you know, in the sets and stuff, it's something that you can tell there was a lot more effort and thought than your average B-movie slasher, and I can really recommend it for that. But yeah, definitely not as good as Texas Chainsaw, and you can definitely see the inspiration there. Now, I know, you know, they're quite famously, Roger Ebert, I believe, really hated this movie, and it's definitely not going to be one that wins the critics over, but if you want to hang around and have a good, fun time with a slasher, this is definitely one of the better ones, and you have to kind of, you know, dig it. You have to have, you know, the mentality, you know, if you're fans of B-movie slashers, this is going to be great for you, you know, so it really is, like I said, really an underrated film, and not perfect by any means, super cheesy, and definitely has its flaws, but, you know, I really did enjoy it, and like I said, building to a really, really cool finale. I really did like it. So yeah, definitely recommended to the right audience, you know, so if slasher fans, if you haven't checked this out, Troma fans, definitely worth a watch. Anyway, I know there's a remake to this. I'm not sure when I'll get around to watching it, but I am kind of curious what they did with it, so I'll check that out sometime in the future. Anyway, to everyone who's watched so far, thank you for watching. To everyone who's liked and subscribed, thank you. You're really helping the channel out. I'll put a relevant playlist on the bottom if you want to see more. I'll have more videos in the playlist. Anyway, have a good day. I'll see you guys again very, very soon. Relevant playlist on the bottom. Have a good day.